There are a number of compounds that comes into the market without toxicity testing, and the main problem is with the human safety. No one is talk about the human safety or human life and its better improvement. But for any exposure into the environment, for any exposure of the substance into the market for the disease treatment or in the environmental pollutant toxicity, the main branch is come into for learning purpose, which is regulatory toxicology. Hello guys, welcome to my YouTube channel Regulatory Talks RX. Here we are going to discuss about all aspects related to regulatory toxicology and any other functions, any other related subjects of regulatory toxicologist. What is the function of regulatory toxicologist, and what is the role of regulatory toxicologist to prepare the guideline against toxicity assessment, toxicity checkup, and assessment with the toxicity testing. So that all aspects related to regulatory toxicology, here we are going to discuss about that. So to know more about this branch, stay tuned in this YouTube channel. So let's see what is the regulatory toxicology.
So we will see that what it is exactly. Regulatory toxicology is deals with the regulations. Regulations, which is for what it is an to regulate the regulate or control the direct according to the rules or principle or law. By the use of principle, by the use of law, by the use of rules, we have to regulate something which are called as a regulations. And in the regulatory toxicology, these regulations are related to the toxicological aspects. So we only know that these things, that regulatory toxicology is a regulation related to toxicology. But with the regulations, we have to one responsibility also. Let's see what it is. Let's see the definition of regulatory toxicology. Regulatory toxicology, it is a branch which deals with the collection, processing and evaluation of epidemiological and toxicological data, which is come from the experiments. For what? To permit the toxicological based decisions, or to make the rules and regulations which are directed toward the protection of human health against the harmful effects. Protection of human health, which is a main and big responsibility that comes, and that should be a main responsibility for the regulatory toxicologist, which can protect the human health against harmful effects of the chemical substance. We all are heard about the toxicological tragedy. If that is, it means one type of if the thalidomide tragedy. Due to the thalidomide administration to the pregnant woman, there is an focomelia type of toxicological adverse event also occurred. At that time, this regulatory toxicology is nothing existing, and for this reduction of these harmful effects of chemical substance, and to increase the lifestyle, and to increase the human health, to protect the human health, this regulatory toxicology branches came.
So next is a collection. For collection of toxicological data, we have to do the toxicity testing. No, that for the toxicity testing, there is a number of steps that we need to follow. But the main is for collection of a toxicological data, main we need to do, that is toxicity testing. There are two types of toxic testing, uh, which is through the descriptive toxicology, through the mechanistic toxicology. We need to do the toxic testing, and the branch of these are also the branch of the toxicology. Descriptive toxicology deals with the toxicity of a chemicals, that focuses on the toxicity of chemicals or the agent, that usually the testing can be occur on the animal, and it correlated with the uh, human toxicity. So it provides dose response information upon the exposure of harmful toxic agents, and it involves the toxicity assessment of four steps. So and next is a mechanistic toxicology. Mechanistic toxicology, which identify and understand the cellular and biochemical and molecular mechanism based on the exposure of toxicant. And in mechanical toxicology, mainly we see that what are the cellular changes, what are the biochemical changes inside the cell that occurs due to the uh, absorption of toxic agent into the cell. So that is a main the branch of toxicology that gives us the toxicological data by the toxicity testing. So the use of a similar pathological uh, man and genetically modified organism, that done in the descriptive toxicology. And in mechanistic toxicology, we know the mechanism that how toxic agent cause the toxicity.
Now next is a processing and evaluation. How we can process, how we can evaluate the toxicity, how we can process the processing the toxicity aspects and toxicity regulations. For that we have to get the toxicity assessment, which involves the four steps. First is hazard identification, second is dose response assessment, third is exposure assessment, and last which is risk assessment. Number one, which is the hazard identification. What is hazard identification? We have to identify the hazard which determine the exposure of a chemical that increase the particular adverse reaction, and it can be done by the hazard identification data, human epidemiological data, which is based on the study of epidemiological studies on how many animals or how many humans which is going through that toxicity exposure. And next is animal bioassay. We can also able to do the animal bioassay of that chemical, and we get the hazard identification. And next is now it comes with prediction of hazards by the in silico, which is structure activity relationship. It also work on the hazard identifications. Next is dose response assessment. Dose response assessment mainly it deals with the relationship between the exposure, appearance and duration of adverse effect, and it can be helped to calculate the novel, which is no observed adverse effect level and low observed adverse effect level. For this calculation we have to get the dose response assessment. And the next is exposure assessment. Exposure assessment is a exposure population, that is a general public or which is a selected group. The type of substance which is exposed, it should be a pharmaceutical, it should be a chemical or pollutant. Single substance or mixture of a substance, it can be assessed by the single substance or mixture of a substance which is exposure. Or duration of exposure means how many times how many duration it can be exposed, in how many duration, pathway of exposure and media through which it is exposed. It can be studied in the exposure assessment. And after that, how we can assess the risk assessment or risk characterization is the main last step, and it is main step in the evaluation of toxicity. The review toxicity and exposure assessment output, it is reviewed by the risk characterization, and it quantifies the risk, and it combines the risk across the all pathway and assess the present certainties and consider the site specific human studies.
So in next video we will discuss about the what are the role of regulatory toxicologists, what are the functions of regulatory bodies towards the toxicity assessment. So for that only, thank you so much for watching this video.